usually ends in pain and suffering. So you learn fast. So I'm a Syrian, the bad guys in the Bible. So just that's where we are. But no, I grew up with a very proper father. He's a very, very proper man. And so you learned a lot from him. I don't think I've ever seen my dad do the dishes, to be very honest with you. We couldn't sit at the table until he sat down. And he wouldn't sit down unless there was rice and pita bread there. So we had to wait sometimes. And I have two massive brothers, and he would sometimes call us Haywin. In Aramaic, that's hyenas. Because when we'd eat, man, we'd eat. But you learn fast there, and the culture is very interesting because some of you have tea parties. Well, that's a Tuesday night for us. Like, that's just normal. We always had tea, we sat down, we communicated, we talked, and children were to sit down with the parents and be among that conversation, and we're expected to converse. And so we were talking. So I guess that kind of really helped me out in life. As I grew up, at a very young age, I ended up in corporate America and rising rather fast. And, started going to all these galas, and now I got a chance to be exposed to the American version of etiquette. And that's when you're exposed to a bunch of spoons and forks and stuff like that. That was not a big thing in the Middle Eastern etiquette culture. That's not like a huge issue for us, right? And I appreciate her comments about the Japanese culture, because that's just side stuff. It's a matter of how you engage with other people. And I find that to be a very important part of etiquette. And so my wife and I, we enjoy hosting families and just having them over and just showing them how to love on each other and bless each other. So that's me.
His name is JR. Hi, my name is Bianca Jonathan. He's my husband, and I'm honestly so nervous. I actually want to talk to all of you. I feel like this is amazing. You guys are so impressive. I don't have etiquette training. All I really did back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I worked for a nonprofit, and they called them high-risk teens back then. I think now they call them inner-city teens. And I worked in a couple of the projects in San Bernardino. And back then there were a lot of things that they would teach. They would teach self-esteem, pregnancy prevention, because that became a really big thing in the mid-90s, late 90s. And anger management, communication, and drug and alcohol. And so that's kind of what I was doing. And even though I was a Christian back then, I was always trying to find a way, and sometimes I'm like, forget the book, you need Jesus, and so now I serve with AHG along with Aaron Erb here, and the fact that we get to do that, and AHG, it's kind of the easiest way to put it, sometimes like Girl Scouts, but Christian-based, biblically based, and I don't even like saying it that way, but it is such a beautiful thing to be able to pour into I was working with the teenagers, and just trying to shepherd their hearts. And so now I just have that ability to just constantly pour Christ into them. But now I also notice we're trying the manners. Okay. You're saved, your identity, you understand that, but now we need to practice basic things, how to dress. And so I'm gonna save some of that information for Aaron to share, because we also had a tea party last year, and it covered social skills and the social etiquette. And it was such a great time. So I don't have much to give. I think the only thing was just teaching the boys. I worked with group home kids, and whoever the judge sent over to this nonprofit, and we're just always trying to give them the basics, just the basics, dressing, job interview, yes ma'am, all the basic things, and trying to kind of, the things that they don't have, that maybe they don't have a parent, maybe they don't sit down, and because both parents are working, and so they don't have the time to sit down, have dinner, and they don't, that's not a thing, that's almost a luxury. And so when I've had some of my kids' friends come over, they're like, we don't get to do this, and I assume they did because, they just said that their parents are working. So all that to say is, yeah, whatever we can do, whatever, so.
Oh, she passed the mic to me. I'm pretty sure when you introduce yourself, you're supposed to stand up. This is my wife, Kathy. 45 years, and she learned etiquette from her grandmother, who was very proper, and myself, I learned my etiquette in the United States Navy, and so if any of the teenagers in the future act up, you can send them to me, and I'll teach them the finer points of doing push-ups. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I guess I will keep it going over here. My name is Laura Vanessa Mendez. I was born and raised in Mexico. When I moved to the States, I discovered there were so many beautiful restaurants, Michelin star, and I had no idea what to do when, the waiter will come, and it just felt so overwhelming. I didn't have any formal training, so what did I do? YouTube. So, when I was on YouTube, I discovered this influencer that lives in Geneva, and she has this online course. So of course I signed up. It was a 6-month training. They taught me a lot of different things, including personal grooming, how important it is to, of course dressing well, it's important, but also what's going on in the inside. So in terms of hygiene and do your hair, all these beautiful things that are necessary. And I also have a bachelor degree in international business, so a lot of etiquette on how to deal with people from different cultures that has really helped me. For example, when you're handling a business card to a Japanese person, you're not supposed to just give it with one hand, you're supposed to give it with both hands, yes. It's just little details that you really have to pay attention to when you're looking at somebody, making sure you're making eye contact, how to make a firm handshake. And just throughout my career, I've been through so many job interviews that I believe that I can make a good addition. On top of that, I'm an auntie of 8 kids, 4 different sisters, so they all have been raised in different ways. And I think it's very beautiful when we sit at the table together and we have all these conversations. Unfortunately, it's so hard to let them just be themselves without being on their phones. It's such a big problem nowadays, especially with social media. That's all that communication they have, through text message and not even formal words, honestly. They abbreviate everything. So I've been, trying to make an effort to be more present with my nephews and my nieces to just teach them good manners, right? And I am here because God is a gentleman himself, so happy to help in any capacity. And also my native language is Spanish, so if I can also serve translation services or something like that, I'll be happy to serve. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Loretta, and I'm just a parent who showed up to see what it's about. I have no training in etiquette, but I have a daughter, and she's 8 years old, and I always wanted her to be in an etiquette class. I just thought it would be wonderful for her to learn everything that it is about. She has Asperger's, and I just noticed when I put her in a class, she just thrives and it takes off and everything's good. So I just came to find out about it. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm Danielle Segura. I spent the first 15 years of my career in customer service, and I believe that every teen should have the experience of customer service. Yes. The next 15 years was spent as my husband's business partner and essentially the face of the company. Another thing that children should learn how to do is write a proper email, some adults as well. And so I really just came to glean from you guys. I'm also the program manager here for Liberty Ed. That's the education ministry here. And just to glean and learn from you guys. Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Adam Segura. Just the father of 2 teenage boys. I grew up in a home that my mother would always say, you don't know if the queen's coming over today. Woo! So room was always spick and span. Ironing my own clothes at 6 years old. That's just how we were raised. So she was a professional businesswoman, always wore a suit every day. She worked in downtown LA, so that's just how I was raised. So I always perpetually teach my boys, even I do it to a point where it almost annoys my wife sometimes, always opening the door for her in the car all the time, constantly bringing her roses, even on occasions, constantly, because that needs to be taught to these young men. Not just on their birthday, not just on Mother's Day, random Tuesdays, random Mondays, all the time, to a point where sometimes it's like, she's like, all right, that's enough.
Race to the door to see who can get there first.
Yes, and so it's that stuff we need to be taught to these young men these days. Because honestly, just driving around, you see grown men in pajamas in the middle of the day, and you're like, what's going on? Do you guys own a belt or what? So yeah, it's definitely needed in society. I don't know if it is only in Southern California, but yes, in the South and other states, there's a lot more etiquette and manners, and we really need to do something about it. We've been talking about it for years as a couple. We need to find an etiquette class for these boys, and I serve in Trail Life. I serve with the teenagers, the navigators, and you see it amongst all the young men. I address them all by their last name, and they're kind of taken back by it. And I told them, like, look, this is how you show respect to another man. It's the basis of biblical masculinity. And it needs to be emphasized, and it needs to be taught. So we're very grateful. When you mentioned it, we both looked at each other like, we've been talking about this, we've been praying about this, so this is pretty amazing, and we're very grateful.
Well, thank you. This is awesome because this is something that's been on my heart as well. I have not been formally trained myself in etiquette. I was raised in a very strict home, so I can relate with that. There were times when I thought, okay, today I'm going to meet God. But with that being said, I learned etiquette actually in Guatemala. I went to middle school in Guatemala, and I had seen things that I had never seen in the United States of America. How they were addressing the teacher, how all the kids were lined up. Everything was done in an utmost respect and honorable manner towards all the girls and towards all the boys. And so my family as well, there was an extension of that because I didn't know, coming from the US, I'm first generation. And so I didn't know, well, my family had to teach me that when you're walking a lady down the street, you were walking on the outside, they're on the inside. And I didn't know that. And so there were just many different things that were inculcated into me that to this day I treasure and I honor, opening up the door, ladies first. Actually, it happened to me one time at Costco, and I went there for lunch, and I had a great meal, right? They had freebies back then before COVID. So I go there, and I'm just patiently waiting they were serving some pizza. And there was just a gathering of women with their children. And so I just stepped aside and made sure that every single woman with their child was going to be able to get a slice of pizza. And there came a point in time when one of the women came up to me and she said, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong with the food?" Or I said, "No." I said, "Ma'am," I says, "ladies first. You need to have your meal with your child." And the person who was serving the meal looked at me. She said, "I haven't seen this in all my years of being here." And she says, "You know what? I've got something for you." And I said, "Ma'am, that's okay. That's quite all right. I just want to make sure they don't get their meal." So lo and behold, a couple of minutes passed by, and she says, "Come here." She gave me a whole pizza. And I said, "Ma'am," I said, "thank you very much. But you know what? There's probably other shoppers here as well." And at that moment, I knew that, you know what? I need to consider others more than myself. Because in the end, I was blessed. Others were blessed. And it was just an awesome moment. But I so cherish everyone's experience and knowledge. I look forward to learning even more of those things that I do not know. So thank you, everyone, for sharing. That's beautiful.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rosemary, and thank you for giving us this opportunity for ministry. All I'm going to say about my background is my grandmother and her best friend of 60 years called each other Mrs. Aiken and Mrs. Donovan. So was the beginning of a wonderful heritage that was passed on. My mom spent a lot of time and effort making sure that her children could live a life where they showed grace and they exuded hospitality. And her expression was, "You were not raised by wolves." And I said that to my husband the other day. I work as a dementia care consultant and a mediator. And to me, etiquette is really about communicating that I esteem you. I believe in your personal dignity, which is such a great segue into what the Lord is all about. You know? Because what more could he have done than to show I believed in you enough to die for you and want you with me? So I've done a little bit of work over the years with Royal Family Kids Camp, which is a great ministry that serves the abused, neglected kids in the foster system in Orange County. And I would put on tea parties, and I was able to, through the games and the music and the conversations, help the kids to see that that's what this is all about. It's all about interacting in community and showing someone that I respect you, I esteem you, because of the way in which I conduct myself towards you. And when I do my mediations with clients, these families are ready to go to court, and these families are angry, and these families are foul-mouthed and ill-mannered, and a lot of it started with the keyboard warrior behaviors and the accusations that weren't true. And so I have to have very stern rules in my mediations. And I let the families know this pulling back and this learning how to really interact with someone properly, you're going to feel pride from that. You're going to feel good that you're using that self-control, which segues back into what the Lord is all about. And that's why I work privately, so I can witness to people in work. But that's really, to me, what the emphasis is, that we want our communications with people to be all about the fact that we think highly of them, and we show that in the way we think of ourselves and in how we interact with them. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. I'm excited.
Hi, my name is Erin Erb. I am the troop coordinator for the American Heritage Girls Troop here at Calvary Chapel, and I'm excited to be a part of what I call the MEGA movement, the Make Etiquette Great Again trademark pending. And I wanted to brag on our church and our troop that last year we held an etiquette event based on a badge that the girls can earn, and we opened it up to area troops to join us for that, and we had over 200 girls. So they attended classes all morning, and so like the 6 to 8 year olds, they're called Tenderhearts, and they had a Princess Academy, and they practiced walking with books on their heads and how to address adults. And then the 9 to 11 year olds, they had a little bit different curriculum they went through. Our older girls, and I brought all of that because I love that it's all age specific. It makes it a little bit fun. The older girls even had, they did body language. Where's the body language expert? Okay, yes, I have my eye on you. They talked about body language. They also talked about how social skills, because it's a social skills and etiquette badge, and they talk about how do you address a friend who's lost a family member? You know, just the difficult or awkward conversations. We talked about how our words have impact, and we gave them a tube of toothpaste that squeezed it out. Okay, now try to put all that toothpaste back in as being kind of a synonym for what it's like to get your words back and that kind of thing. And then at the end, it culminated in a tea, and the women from our women's ministry hosted a table. They brought their own china and had the girls practice the etiquette, and they got to dress in their cute little dresses. And seeing what's happening here, we would love to open up what we've done or be a part of whatever's happening, because on Sunday you said there were no coincidences in the Bible. There's not a word. And it's been on the leadership team's heart this year to have, we're already planning our program year for August. And it's been on our heart to focus on girl leadership and biblical leadership. And we would love to partner with whatever you plan here and have our girls help lead aspects of it or serve in any way. So thank you for including us tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm Edie Cross, and I am a daughter of an Austrian person that worked for a baron before World War II and before she immigrated here. So etiquette in our house was always very strict and very well done. And I also worked for one of the Claremont colleges for 30 years and very involved in staff service award affairs and staff and faculty mixers, where we did host like 500 people at an event. And also, you know, to get the freshman classes also involved in etiquette as well. So when they first started out, we'd have little workshops for them. So anyway, I also raised 2 boys that are very well respected and very decent people and know how to treat people very well. So I'm really glad you guys are hosting this. It's very well needed in this community. Oh, I'm well done.